Lindsay Halligan. She was that former beauty queen pageant winner that was appointed to the Eastern District in Virginia to then take on all of Donald Trump's cases of political retribution, those stupid cases that mean absolutely nothing. Well, she's coming apart at the seams too. A reporter, her name is Anna Bauer, and she's a senior editor over at Lawfare. She had an exchange with Lindsay Halligan, and it's been exposed. This is her talking on CNN about it.
About that subject matter, I did find it really strange, and especially considering we didn't have a pre-existing reporter-source relationship. These were text messages with Lindsay Halligan, and right before we were about to publish, she also additionally reached out to me again, and as you mentioned, claimed that our conversation was off the record. Caitlin, I would encourage people to read the text messages that we published, and they can decide for themselves. But Lindsay Halligan never once suggested that we were off the record. She had reached out to me. You know as well as I do, Caitlin, in dealing with speaking to sources, that the way that it works is there's an agreement, there's a conversation that is had about it. And I never agreed to speak off the record. She never suggested it. I would have been happy to speak with her off the record had she suggested it. But she did not do that here. So I was very surprised when she, suddenly suggested that things were off the record when they in fact were not.
A lot of off the record, on the record conversations because, Lindsay Halligan is a rookie and has no idea what she's doing. Apparently not only under her lawfare cases, but also apparently when it comes to talking to reporters. Before I let Anna Bauer continue on with that conversation that she revealed, which I'm also going to show you guys, let me at least give you guys an update on what it is that's happening in case you hadn't heard how devastatingly stupid Lindsay Halligan is. So this Trump-appointed prosecutor, obviously Lindsay Halligan, tried to claim that a series of messages to a reporter criticizing her coverage had been, quote, off the record. But it was late. Lindsay Halligan, a former insurance lawyer who Trump appointed as the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia in September, had reached out to Lawfare senior editor Anna Bauer earlier in the month. And she wasn't happy about what it is that she was reaching out to her about. The topic was Bauer's coverage. Actually, more specifically, her ex-posts about what the New York Times had already reported about Halligan's prosecution of Attorney General Letitia James, who, of course, is one of Trump's perceived political enemies. This is the ex-post in question that Lindsay Halligan was so upset about in reaching out to Anna Bauer. The New York Times reports that Letitia James's great niece lives in the home that's the subject of this indictment that Donald Trump is trying to exploit. The niece reportedly testified before a different grand jury, telling them that she had lived there for many years without paying rent. James visits there regularly. So in case you guys know what this whole thing's about, they're saying that Letitia James, apparently in these documents from these two different residences, signed each of them as a primary residence, which would, of course, give some kind of tax breaks because of primary residence versus like a secondary or vacation residence. This is the basis for these prosecutions, just about everything that Donald Trump is trying to pull on folks because he can't find anything on anyone. So this is the one he's trying to pull on Letitia James. And the basis behind this New York Times report is talking about how they said she was using it as a primary residence, even though she was renting it out. In their reporting, apparently her family member lives there rent free, which is what the New York Times reported, that then Anna Bauer of Lawfare quoted and showed screen grabs of and just kind of summarized what that report was. This is more of Bauer talking about what is it then happened after.
You mentioned that you reached out to the Justice Department. They accused you of trying to tattletale on Lindsay Halligan tonight. I want to read their statement in full because they said, quote, "You clearly didn't get the response you wanted, which was information handed over to you without having to dig into the facts of the case to craft a truthful story. So you thought you'd tattletale to main justice. Lindsay Halligan was attempting to point you to facts, not gossip, but when clarifying that she would adhere to the rules of the law and not disclose grand jury information, you threatened to leak an entire conversation. Good luck ever getting anyone to talk to you when you publish their text." I read it. I don't think you're threatening to leak it.
I didn't threaten anything. I reached out for comment because I'm a journalist who is publishing a story.
She wasn't even doing that as far as being the primary person to reach out. But really fast, that message there from the Department of Justice? The Department of Justice said that she's a tattletale. Look at these children. This is what I'm talking about. These are the times we need to exploit and show and highlight just how childlike these folks are. Don't keep arguing with children. Just be like, okay, listen, and pat them on their heads and say, listen, youngster, you have no idea what you're doing. What I need you to do is understand that the Justice Department does need to be coming out talking about how a reporter is tattletaling on someone who reached out to them to complain about a effing tweet, bro. These are the messages that reporter Bauer then released. It says, Anna, Lindsay Halligan here. You're reporting things that are simply not true. Thought you should have a heads up. Okay, first of all, why? To continue on. She says, hey, Lindsay, thanks for getting in touch. Accuracy is important to me, and I'd love to hear what you think I've got wrong so I can correct it if I made an error. But just to confirm this is really you, can never be too careful about this kind of thing. Can you tell me where we first met? And then so she made a confirmation of where they met so they can really know who she's talking to, because she probably thought, are you kidding me? Lindsay effing Halligan's texting me about a tweet. This is what Halligan went on to say. Honestly, so much, I can't tell you everything, but your reporting in particular is just way off. I had to let you know. It's clear you don't have sources that are accurately telling you what you're writing. Seems clear to me that you just jump to your biased conclusions based off what you read instead of truly looking into the evidence. I'll remind you for the third time. Lindsay Halligan is complaining to Anna Bauer about a tweet, not her own reporting, a tweet that summarized the New York Times reporting about what it is that was going on with this case that Lindsay Halligan has no effing clue what she's doing. Bauer responds, are you saying that something I said in this post is inaccurate? And if so, what? Sorry, just trying to figure out what exactly we're talking about here. You're assuming exculpatory evidence without knowing what you're talking about. It's just bizarre to me. If you have any questions before you report, feel free to reach out to me. But jumping to conclusions does your credibility no good. I think I made it clear that my post was based on the New York Times report, not my own reporting. Did they get something wrong? For normal people at this point, Lindsay Halligan, if you're in her position, you'd be like, oh, actually, my bad. I was talking about the New York Times reporting, not yours. I'm over here making a fool of myself on this text exchange back and forth with you, complaining about you tweeting about a story. Back to Halligan. She says, yes, they did, but you went with it without even fact checking anything. And they are disclosing grand jury information, which is also not a full representation of what happened. I guess I expect them to do that, but I was surprised by you running with it. I'm happy to retract or correct anything that's untrue, but I can't do that if I don't know what the supposed error is. Can you be more specific, Lindsay? You should read the indictment. It says she received thousands of dollars in rent. I can't tell you the grand jury stuff. If you can't tell her the grand jury stuff, stop bringing up the grand jury things. Stop bringing up how she should have known better and how she should have looked into sources. Because now what Anna Bauer is realizing is maybe you can tell me some information. She went into reporter mode like, this has become my story now. But again, Halligan's too stupid to realize that. I'm still not sure I understand what's incorrect about the New York Times account or my summary of it. This is the unhinged unraveling of this administration fully coming into play. She says, you're biased. Your reporting isn't accurate. I'm the one handling the case, and I'm telling you that. If you want to twist and torture the facts to fit your narrative, there's nothing I can do. Waste to even give you a heads up. You've approached me in saying that I've compounded or repeated something inaccurate in the New York Times account of Nakia's testimony. I'm happy to correct it, but I can't do so without a sense of what I'm supposedly got wrong. I'm sorry. Continue to do what you have been, and you'll be completely discredited when the evidence comes out. Okay, thank you. I'd love to talk further when you're more at liberty to be specific. The degree to which Bauer has given her all these outs, these off-ramps to this conversation that's incredibly embarrassing for her is off the charts. But for some reason, Halligan has this false sense of confidence in this conversation that she's had. Halligan says, you don't report fairly. And with a bunch of spaces for some reason, I can't discuss any potential charges with reporters. If evidence arises that warrants further charges, I'll look into it. So I think at this point, Lindsay Halligan looked up and said, well, I said a lot of things there. It's been like tons of messages. I cut out a lot of the messages. I know I read through a lot already, but I cut out so many other these messages that they had back and forth that was talking about how mad she is and how maybe she shouldn't do that. And I'm gonna give you this kind of information, but I can't talk about the grand jury, but then that grand jury, but maybe you should talk to someone. I can't give you any more information. Well, stop talking, bro. Stop talking. Here's the last exchange. Halligan says, by the way, everything I ever sent you is off record. You're not a journalist, so it's weird saying that, but just letting you know. She says, I'm sorry, but that's not how this works. You don't get to say that in retrospect. Yes, I do, off record. I'm really sorry, is what Bauer responds. I would have been happy to speak with you on and off the record, on an off the record basis had you asked, but you didn't ask, and I still haven't agreed to speak on that basis. Do you have any further comment for the story? It's obvious the whole conversation is off record. There's disappearing messages, and it's on Signal. What's your story? You never even told me about a story. She can't be this dumb. This woman who's talking about all the things that I just reached out to you and texted you about off of zero any kind of start from you, no primary messages from this reporter. She reached out to a reporter and started scolding her. And after she went through tons, 30, 40 messages to her, then says, by the way, everything that I've been yelling and complaining to you about that has turned into a story now is off the record. No, it's not. But because they're petulant children in this administration, and for some reason she's been told that she has, I guess, some kind of confidence in what it is that she's doing when she's doing everything incorrectly. Here's the last aspect of this little interview back and forth where Anna Bauer talked about why it is that she even posted all of these messages, and I think it makes sense.
And I want to underscore here that why we thought that this was a newsworthy story and why there's great public interest in this is, I'm a legal reporter. I cover the Justice Department. So does everyone in our organization. We're familiar with how things work in terms of reporter and U.S. attorney relationships and reporter and prosecutor relationships. When this exchange happened, it felt so out of the ordinary and so unusual that, it felt like something that really should be published, because here you have someone who is already so highly scrutinized under such pressure with these very high profile prosecutions and already knows that, anything that she does is going to be picked apart by defense counsel, even the most minor misstep. And yet here she is on the record messaging with a reporter about an ongoing prosecution, which just does not really happen that much in terms of communications between reporters and prosecutors. And so we found it to be really remarkable. And over the past few days, we spoke to reporters who cover legal affairs. We spoke to former prosecutors. They have never quite seen an exchange like this, Caitlin. And so I think that, it felt like something that we needed to publish, and we did. And there was nothing in terms of leaking anything. It was Lindsay Halligan who approached me. So I think that would be my response to that.
She had to explain why it's newsworthy that this woman, who's never tried or done anything, prosecuted a case in her life, decided to reach out to her with these series of messages. Again, Lindsay Halligan started this whole thing over that tweet. She has the guts to then go up and start texting people and tell them it's on the record, off the record. And this stupid Department of Justice called that whole text exchange a tattletale, because the people that are running this country are children.